Comrade Rule.
I thought I would just sort of give some general background and then talk a little bit about the nuclear issue in connection with Iran. First of all, I think just to remind everybody that the Iranian revolution against the Shah was an anti-imperialist revolution to free Iran from the stranglehold that imperialism had on their country through the Shah, their puppet, which was preventing Iran from developing as a modern industrial power. This revolution to overthrow the Shah was opposed tooth and nail by imperialism in general, US imperialism in particular, and British imperialism as well, the two powers with the oil multinationals to their name. This opposition, this tooth and nail, mindless opposition in some ways to the Iranian Revolution, had the effect of uniting pretty well all sections of society against imperialism, including people who would normally be happy to be compradors. Nevertheless, it was a revolution in which communists would have participated in an extremely important role that they would have played. But following the revolution, as is well known, the bourgeois and the petty bourgeois elements eliminated the proletarian opposition. But what we have to remember is that notwithstanding that, the remaining classes, the bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie in Iran, remained anti-imperialist, notwithstanding the fact that they were anti-working class, or against the working class taking power. And it's in this context that the revolution took on this religious role. So in the name of religion, you could keep the masses in check, while you can always find something in every religion which will justify making concessions to the masses. The Iranian proletariat is an extremely sophisticated one. They've had years and years of enjoying a powerful communist movement, and they had high expectations of the revolution. And so it wasn't possible to ignore their needs and demands, even while defeating the communist leadership. One of the strands that developed in the Iranian Revolution was what we might call liberation theology, or liberation Islamism, under a gentleman called Ali Shariati. He was the spokesman of this particular trend of Islamism. He had been in Paris, I believe, in the 1930s, and as a result of that, he'd been influenced by Marxists and all kinds of people. And he'd come up with a form of Islamism not too different from the liberation theology put forward among the Catholics by Leonardo Boff and people like that. But there's strong emphasis in this type of theology on the need to look after the interests of the masses of the people. And Ahmedinajad, although I think probably it's no longer true to say that he's totally a follower of Shariati, nevertheless he is committed to this whole idea that you have to look after the masses of people. One of the most dramatic ways, incidentally, in which you can actually see in Iran the influence of this kind of liberation theology thinking is perhaps most unexpected to most people, and that is the extent to which the Iranian women have been accepted as pretty much equals in the society. If you look at the universities, over half the students are women. Women are able to work in every kind of profession. A little bit more difficult for them to enter politics. Ahmadinejad recently put forward, and this was considered very revolutionary, a proposal that there should be 3 women in his cabinet. He's supposed to be a dyed-in-the-wool, Islamic fundamentalist, but he put forward the proposal that 3 women should enter his cabinet. The clerical censors, as it were, decided that he could have only one of them as Minister of Health, and there has been quite a bit of dissent within the clerical circles about whether that should be allowed at all. The main concern for all these sectors of Iranian society was to build up the country, build up the industry in that country. And one of the ways, the main way of getting the money to be able to do that was obviously selling the oil for that purpose. But one of the things that was noticed that when they did that is that on selling the oil, then the temptation to import from the countries to whom they were selling the oil cheaply produced stuff. This was actually undermining local industries, local production. And this is something that Ahmadinejad has vowed to take in hand, which obviously doesn't please imperialism very much. It might be a basis also for a divide opening up between Ahmadinejad and what one might call the Iranian bazaar and those mullahs that represent that particular section of society. The merchant class isn't so bothered as to where the products come from, and therefore isn't perhaps as bothered about having a powerful home industry as would be the industrial section of the bourgeoisie and people, and obviously the proletariat. Part of this drive for modernization has got to center around the question of power. You can't have a modern industry without electricity, without energy. And where is it going to come from? Well, yes, you can say Iran's got all this oil, and what's the problem with energy? But there are a number of issues here. First of all, burning oil is not a clean form of energy. It's not the one that one particularly aims for. Secondly, Iran doesn't have the refining facilities to put that oil into a suitable state in a sufficient quantity. Thirdly, it wants to use the oil to acquire the necessary foreign exchange that will enable it to acquire things that it can't get other than by importing them. Iran decided that the way to ensure its energy supplies was to base itself on nuclear power. It's a decision that's been taken by many other countries and hasn't raised any problems. But of course, when an anti-imperialist country actually decides to go for nuclear power, well then, alarm bells start ringing everywhere and everybody's in quite a panic. But as far as I'm concerned, Iran has a right to develop its nuclear industry not only for the purpose of producing electricity for civil use, but if it feels that it wants a nuclear deterrent, a weapon to deter attack, it has every right to have it. It's got, after all, the United States opposing it, which is armed to the teeth, and a little closer to hand is our dear little Israel, which has also got nuclear weapons and is perfectly happy to use them on Iranians. And that being the case, it does seem a little unreasonable to tell Iran it can't have nuclear weapons. However, the position of the Iranian regime, and it's a perfectly tenable position, is that it actually doesn't need them. It has got sufficient in the way of conventional weapons to be able to defend itself should it need to. It's got a wonderful rocket with a range of 1,200 miles. So anyone attacks Iran, then Iran is in a position to defend itself. Iran has no interest in attacking anybody else. Iran wants peace. Iran is a country like most other countries that need peace in order to be able to develop. They do not want war. All this panic that's being raised in all the newspapers about how Iran is building up this nuclear capacity and these mad mullahs are going to sort of end the world, and this is just so much propaganda designed to frighten the people who don't look at the facts. Iran is not threatening anybody. Al-Baradei, the head of the atomic energy, so what is it, AEIA, anyway,
International Atomic Energy
Agency, has denied that there's any proof whatever that Iran is developing any kind of nuclear weapon. You can read the papers and they'll tell you that although Al-Baradei denies it, there was a secret annex to some report that he made which actually said that they were, in spite of the fact that Baradei has been very, very forcefully denying its existence. So quite honestly, there's no depths that these people won't plumb in their propaganda war against Iran. And let's hope that it doesn't turn into more than a propaganda war. But if it does, well, we know whose side we're on.
Thank you.